Hi everyone, and welcome back to the studio. So if you've been keeping up with my Instagram or my Pinterest, you would know, or you do know, that I've been working on an Epic the Musical blanket, and it is currently February 24th, and at this point in time, I've made all of the squares for each of the sagas. I've made 9 squares per saga, so I've made 81 squares in total. And I've woven together 3 of the sagas and bordered 3 of them. And like, I needed a break. I needed a break. And it's not because I'm not enjoying the process. It's not because I'm not enjoying the results. It's just, well, I can't really fully say that it's because I'm not enjoying the process or the results, but it's like right now I'm having a hard time kind of seeing the end results, even though I am kind of seeing it. I'm having a hard time seeing it, even though I can visualize it. I can set out all the squares for each of the sagas and visualize how the blanket will look. I can do that. But at the same time, it's like I'm having a hard time visualizing it and just continuing. So this blanket, let's see real quick actually. Excuse me. So essentially I have been working on, well, actually, let me rephrase that. I have been listening to the Epic the Musical since, where is the playlist thingy? Where's the thingy? So I'm just trying to find something on my, like something that will relate. But I've been listening to it since like a little bit before the Cyclops saga came out. And I'm just trying to double check the dates here. Okay, so this came out, well, I think the Cyclops saga came out early 2020 or late 2020, mid to late 2023. I'm blanking on the exact dates, but basically a little bit before the Cyclops saga was released was when I started listening to Epic the Musical, and I have loved it ever since. The way I've described it to people and the way I've described it in the videos where I'm making the blanket, those will be out April 4th, 5th, and 6th. The way I've described it is that Epic the Musical is what I needed when I was in elementary, middle, and junior high, whenever the Percy Jackson series came out. Epic the Musical is what I needed then. And I do talk about it a little bit more in the making of the Epic the Musical blanket videos. Like I said, coming out April 4th, 5th, and 6th. So there's that. Excuse me, sorry. At the end of the day, Epic the Musical is what I needed when Percy Jackson came out. And I think I started crocheting around the same time that I started listening to I think I'd been listening to Epic the Musical for a little bit longer than I've been crocheting. Excuse me. And I've been crocheting since September 2023. So I think I started listening to it like a few months before then. Because essentially ever since I started crocheting, I knew I wanted to make an Epic the Musical blanket. A blanket inspired by Epic the Musical. I knew I wanted to do that. And I knew I wanted to do it in the style of granny squares. But because when I started crocheting, I didn't start with granny squares. I just made my first blanket and went with it. And I made my second blanket and went with it. And I didn't start making granny squares until mid to late 2024. So that was like a situation where I was like, I knew I wanted to do it as a granny square because it's like best way to represent like a album artwork, you know? So I held off, and I also knew that like there would probably be other people who were fans of Epic the Musical and also crocheted, and vice versa, people who crocheted but also enjoyed Epic the Musical. So I was like, I want to be able to make a pattern for it as well. And so I had been keeping track of what yarns would work best for what sagas, switch stuff around as new sagas came out, and once most of the sagas were released and I had all the yarns decided upon, I started buying them. I didn't buy them all at once because that would have been like however many dollars. It's like $12 per cake, and then I bought 9. I think some of them I did manage to buy on sale or buy with a sale, through a sale. So it's just like, but again, like on average $12 per skein per cake, or let's say 13, because it was like $12.99. I'm just doing the math real quick. $116.91. So it's like, again, I didn't buy them all at once, which is why that price is a little bit surprising me. At the same time, it's not because of math, but I started buying the yarns that I would need. I started making the squares, and I was really committed to making this, and I officially started making the squares, I think mid to late January. And once I started making the squares, I had basically been pumping out the squares like nonstop, and I was finishing up the Cyclops Saga and the Thunder Saga, those squares at basically the same time. And I feel like I finished the Thunder Saga squares first, and I feel like once I finished the Cyclops Saga squares, those were the last ones I needed to do. Once I finished those, I feel like I kind of hit a brick wall with the energy that I had, the mental energy that I had for this blanket. Because leading up to that point, I had been so focused on making the pattern, making the squares, making the pattern, making the squares, updating the pattern, making the squares, updating the pattern, making the squares, figuring out what I would do, you know. And once I finished the squares, it was just kind of that, like I said, I hit a brick wall, and then I was like, oh. And it's like, I didn't really have any thoughts, but it's just like, okay, now I need to move on to the next step, weaving together the squares and bordering, and then I need to, and it just like, I hit a brick wall, like I said, this is the third time, with the mental energy that I had for this blanket, that I have for it right now in this moment, as I'm recording. So it was very much a situation, it is very much a situation where I need a break, you know. And it's not a situation where I'm just leaving this unfinished because I know I want to finish this blanket. I know I'm going to love the end results, but I need to step away for a little bit, and that is perfectly okay. And it's actually given me some ideas. One main idea, like I do have quite a few projects like pulled up that I want to do. 1, 2, 3. I have 4 specifically that I want to do while I'm taking this break, because my plan is to do like smaller projects and just maybe like amigurumi or some finger crochet stuff to just allow myself to get back on the train of making this blanket. Like you can see here, I'm still working on the border for this one, but you can see here I have like 2 of them done, 2 of the sagas woven together, and then I have the 3rd woven together as well. And it's just, I am making the progress I need to make, but like I've said, I've hit a point where I don't have the mental space for it anymore. And that's not a bad thing. It's just, it is what it is right now. And, you know, again, like, I don't plan to just leave this unfinished, because I know that that's the fear for a lot of crocheters, myself included, where if you stop a project, you're never going to get back to it. Like, it's happened, like, to me twice. There were 2 granny square blankets that I'd started to make, and I had started making the granny squares for them, but I had set it aside, and I've never gone back to them, and I don't think I can and will get back to them. Well, maybe I can get back to one. It's just with the other, I have no idea what hook size I was using, because I didn't write it down, which also leads into an idea I had. I just don't want to say it until I start working on it and fleshing it out a little bit. But right now, it is what it is. I wanted to give a bit of an explanation for this, because mainly because I just want it to kind of be more normalized in the crocheting community to pause your projects, especially larger projects. Like, for me, this one was a really large project, and that is 100% on me, but it is a large project, and it's taking its toll emotionally, mentally, not in a bad way. It's just, I think I needed to pace myself better, which I didn't, and I was so focused on trying to get through the squares that I didn't think of pacing myself. So yeah, so now that that explanation's out of the way, I appreciate you all watching and listening to this video, listening to me talk about this, because again, I would like to maybe start normalizing putting a pause on projects, and I do have a plan to get back to this, like putting a pause on projects that you intend to get back to, especially the projects that are taking up a lot of time and emotional space and mental space and even physical space. Normalizing that, talking about it more, because I feel like maybe it's just me and like the crochet media that I interact with on social media. But it does seem very hush-hush, like, oh, you don't talk about all the unfinished projects or all the yarn you have, even though we do talk about all the yarn that we have, but you don't talk about all the projects you just left behind. So yeah, with all that said, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all in my next video.